Hi, it's Louisa Dahl. And welcome to the Interactive Minds podcast, where I talk with passionate marketers, innovators, and digital leaders about their specific recipes for success. In today's show, I interview Brooke Charlton from Suncorp, talking about how they use data and a DMP to approach their digital media. Here's 3 things you're going to learn. 1. How Suncorp think about their one-to-one communications, loyalty, and digital media. 2. How they've improved their customer experience using data. And 3. How their data is used to target the message and creative to improve conversion and lower cost per acquisition. Let's get into it.
Okay, good afternoon. Today I'm here with Brooke Charlton, who's the Executive Manager of Marketing Automation Activation at Suncorp Group. Brooke's been in the marketing industry for over 12 years and has been in marketing roles at organisations like Sun Super, Barclays Bank, Nestle, Mortgage Choice, several universities, and is going into her 4th year at Suncorp Group. Brooke has been largely focused in the digital area throughout these roles, and we can't wait to delve into more. Welcome, Brooke. It's great to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Louisa. It's great to be here.
All right, so Brooke, to start off with today, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your career to date, which is obviously very strong in the financial services industry, but also you've got a lot of other industry experience as well. How have you chosen the roles that you're going to focus on throughout your career?
I think to start off with, I was in general marketing and I started working on digital and really just developed a passion for it. So I've looked for roles where I could hone in on digital, work with big organisations where you get the opportunity to, partner with the likes of Google and Facebook, and where there were, big budgets that you could use to drive business results. So it's really around the type of digital work. Learning new things has been a big thing for me as well. So going into roles where I could learn, develop myself and develop my team.
Excellent. And you've had quite a few different focus areas of your roles as well, loyalty and now automation. Are those particular areas of interest or has that been opportunistic?
I think, as I said, when I first started to get into digital, I realised how much I love that space. So interest areas for me early on were around UX. I've since moved into the digital marketing and digital media space. And I love that. And I'm really interested in how we can leverage data within digital media to create experiences for customers. So I've sort of specialised in that area, as well as digital strategy overall. That's a passion point of mine, is creating digital strategy that connects to the overall business strategy and helps us to achieve the business goals that we need to within digital and within customer loyalty.
Great. So in your current role, what does it mean to be the Executive Manager of Marketing Automation Activation?
Well, it's a bit of a mouthful, so I usually just drop the last word. But basically what it means is leveraging our data to create automated experiences. So that's across our one-to-one communications, so EDMs, DM, outbound, across loyalty, and across digital media. So creating the strategy around all of those things, bringing them together, and looking at it from a data-driven, experience-driven perspective. And that's across the whole of the Suncorp group. So we've got a number of different brands under the Suncorp umbrella. Not only is it Suncorp, we've got Amy, GIO, APO, and a number of others. So it's pretty interesting to get to work across that full portfolio as well.
Yeah, definitely. And how many do you have in your team working on that in that space?
So I've got a great team of 20. I think we're actually up to 25 now. We've just had a couple of new hires, which is fantastic. So a really strong team of high-performing marketers across all those 3 areas: one-to-one, digital, and customer loyalty.
Okay,
which is great.
And is that how your team is structured, based on those 3 different areas?
Yeah, so we've got quite a big one-to-one team. Reasonable sized digital team and a smallish customer loyalty team at the moment, but that's growing and I'm sure will continue to grow.
Okay, excellent. We're going to get into the specifics of the case study that we've identified to talk about today shortly, but before that, what's the most exciting project that you've worked on during your time at Suncorp?
I would say the customer loyalty program has been really exciting. That was what I came back to Suncorp to work on, and it was really creating this strategy from scratch. So doing a whole lot of customer research to understand customers' needs, what they want from financial services companies, what they think of loyalty programs, and designing something that will actually resonate with them. So built that from, having no customers on board to now having over 400,000 customers registered. And every week we're getting over, in the millions in terms of the amount spent on the portal, which is pretty incredible. Not only that, we are actually driving real value for customers. We're saving them money. So in the last year, we've saved customers millions of dollars. So it is a genuine value exchange. So it's been really exciting to build that and to build a team around it and, create the strategy and the phasing to make that happen.
Great. And how long has that loyalty program been running for now?
So it was kicked off as a pilot last year, but we really ramped it up in February. So it's been a pretty short period of time where it's really just taken off. And actually in the last week, we had our record volume in terms of spend. Coming up to Christmas, people were wanting to save more money. So we ran a big Christmas campaign and it absolutely blew us away in terms of results. So it's been great to kind of see it grow, and it's sort of been my little baby over the last year.
Yeah, and 400,000 customers using it in under 12 months. That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and getting real value from it. Like, it's genuinely a value exchange.
What types of things are they using the loyalty program to purchase?
So they're getting a lot of savings on everyday items. So it's things that they need to buy every week. And that's the good thing. And really, customers have told us loud and clear that they didn't want to be pushed to just take out more products like a lot of loyalty programs do. They wanted something that was really tangible. So it's those things that they need to buy week in, week out, which is great.
Fantastic. Great. What a great project to be working on.
Yeah, it's been exciting.
So today we've also pinpointed to talk about a specific case study that you've worked on recently, specifically around using an audience-driven approach to digital media. Can you tell us a little bit about what this project involved?
Yeah. So this one I actually set up a couple of years ago, and it's continued to evolve from there. The team's done a great job with it. But basically what it's about is leveraging our data to target the right people in digital media. Mm-hmm. So creating a really clear strategy around how we'll leverage our first-party data, which is data that we own, both from the website and from our CRM. Creating partnerships and leveraging second-party data where we're directly talking to publishers, and it's a one-to-one data exchange. And then also around leveraging third-party data, so data that is aggregated and that you can buy on a data exchange. So it's been about how we can meet our customer needs through using those types of data and tailoring the experience to make it more relevant to them.
Awesome. Sounds like a big project. What product range or brands was that across?
It's across the whole Suncorp group.
Excellent.
So we've shifted to taking a portfolio approach. So leveraging the same sort of framework across everything.
Okay. And what were the objectives of this project? And I suppose potentially the more recent elements of it?
Yeah. So the objectives were really around, meeting customer needs and providing relevant experiences. So that's, ultimately was embedded in how to make the experience better for our customers. Obviously, we had financial objectives around it. So we were looking at key metrics around our cost per acquisition and looking at how to better leverage the partnerships that we have with our publishers so that we could drive down our cost of acquiring new customers.
So was this largely for an acquisition phase project?
Yes. Yeah, that was primarily the focus. We did have some use cases that are around retention as well. But primarily the majority was around acquiring new customers and in a more effective way and making the experience better for them.
Okay, great. So we'd love to, I suppose, delve into this a little bit more and understand, some of the steps that you took in implementing this campaign and achieving those objectives. What approach did you take in terms of setting this up?
Yeah, I think the big thing with anything that's data-driven is to have a really clear strategy around it. So what I did in the beginning was to look at those three different types of data that you have access to. So first-party data, second and third. And then identified all of the different audience types within those. The overarching principle to it was to look at how we could improve the experience for customers, look at the business benefit that could be driven and make sure there was enough scale to each of the audience sizes, and then prioritise, because you can't do everything at once. So I needed to demonstrate to senior leaders that this was going to drive business benefit and customer benefit. So being really ruthless with the prioritisation of use cases and starting with those that were going to have the biggest impact was really key.
So by doing that, you could then demonstrate as you went that you're going to get a return on this and then continue to expand?
Exactly. And it takes a while for these things to build up. Obviously, we had a significant investment around technology to start with. So the key sort of narrative internally was, showing that we were getting some wins, but being really clear that we weren't expecting to get a full return on the technology in year one. It was more likely to happen in year two.
Yeah. And is that what ended up happening? And are you talking about your DMP from that perspective?
That's right. And there was other technology that we built in-house as well to support that. So we had some business benefit in year one, but it was small. We were still getting scale around it. And that's the big thing with DMPs is you've actually got to build up your audience pools. People have to log in. So it just takes time. Yeah. And you've got to find ways to automate things. Then year two, it quadrupled in terms of business benefit. It's been huge for us. So it really showed dividends in year two, and it's continuing on that trajectory now.
Awesome. Is this year three now? Or
yes, year three now.
Yeah. Okay, great. And how did you go about choosing, I suppose, the second and third party data that you were going to work with for this?
Yeah. So we already had key relationships with publishers. So what we did is started engaging them and talking to them about the data that they had available for us to access. Again, it was, it came from a place of looking at how we could improve the experience. So what we did was looked at different audience segments they had and looked, of course, at the cost attached to that. And I think that's a really important consideration when you're doing all of this is often there is a cost attached to using that data. So that needs to be factored into your media buying return. And so we also looked at how easy it was to get that data. So, one of the key relationships we formed was with a real estate publisher. And really what that was about was looking at changing the experience on their site based on key segments. So as an example, if you had a family and you were looking to buy, you would get messaging that talked to protecting your family, and it would have a picture of a family and a home. If you were a young couple who were renting, the message would be different. The creative would feature a young couple and it would talk about protecting your belongings when you're renting. So again, it's about relevance to the customer, but with that comes the results of higher conversion because they relate to it. So we would do that with the publishers. We'd feature those on the publisher's site, but also carry that through to our website as well. So it was consistent throughout. And, having that consistent journey meant that people are more likely to ultimately take out a policy.
Yeah, great. And did you notice a better response rate on the publisher's site and then a higher conversion rate on yours as well in terms of responses?
Yeah, so it was both sides of the fence, which was great. So it kind of compounded to give an overall uplift in conversions or a reduction in cost per acquisition.
Nice. And what about third-party data?
Yeah, so we have used some through our DMP, I think, and also through Facebook. I think the big consideration with that is to just understand exactly how they're getting those data segments. So third-party data is cheaper than second-party data for obvious reasons. Everyone has access to it. but with that, the accuracy of the segment is not always there. So I think the big learning for us was to run tests across different third-party data providers with a small amount of budget, to look at the results and then decide on which ones you want to focus in on and scale.
Okay, great. And how much of this had been done at Suncorp before, and how much has been a new strategy?
None of it had been done. So it was completely new, which was really exciting. It was a blank piece of paper where we had to define exactly how we were going to go about achieving it. And it really was transforming how we were running our digital media. So it was a great project to be working on.
So who else was involved at Suncorp, and how are they structured to work on this project?
So we had technology support to make it happen. So people from our technology team, from our data team. The data team are really important. I think the big learning for us was to look at the current ways that we're using data. So, for example, if you're leveraging data for your email campaigns or for outbound, start to think about how you can use those same data sets within digital media. Because really the same sort of principles will apply and the same results will apply when you're in digital as well. So it was definitely a cross-team effort.
And how many in the team, I suppose, heading up or leading this were involved?
So I was leading the project. I had a team of 7 at the time who were involved in it, and then we had a project team that was on it of probably about the same size. It was probably about 7 across the whole group. So reasonably lean when you think about Suncorp's scale, but everyone was just so passionate about the project because it was completely new and really driven to make it happen.
And what about stakeholders that you had to get on board and take along for the ride? Any tips on that process?
Yeah, lots. Make sure you involve legal very early on in the piece and engage them often. So it took us a long time to get legal sign-off, but the reason was it was completely new. So we had to go on a bit of a journey with them to explain this is how it works. These are examples of how other companies have done it. And this is how we can ensure that we're protecting and respecting customers' privacy, because that was really important as well. Giving people, only targeting people who have given us permission to, and also telling them how we're using their data and how they can opt out if they wish to not be targeted in that way.
Yeah, very, really important considerations that I think when we get excited about a program, we don't always, stop and think of the legal implications first up, but obviously need to in this case. Any other stakeholders that are worth kind of talking about here in this context?
I think for us, we had a separate website team. So we worked really closely with them because we needed to make sure that the experience was consistent off-site within digital media as well as on-site. So we worked hand in hand with them to develop the use cases, and they were a key stakeholder in making it happen. Okay,
excellent. Right, and did you then require obviously you required additional budget to make this happen. Was that something that everyone was on board with?
Everyone was on board with wanting to do it. There was a lot of excitement from the leadership team in making it happen. As I said, we just had to be really clear around when we would get the business benefit. So, and I think that was a big learning, was to say, this is a longer term investment. In terms of the digital media world, it's only a year really to get return, but it's not going to happen straight away.
Because 3 months.
Exactly, yeah. So everyone was really supportive. It was just around managing expectations there. But overall, there was huge buy-in across the group. I ran a number of different presentations to stakeholders, and there was a lot of excitement about it. So that was really encouraging as well.
Yeah, great. And I think that's a really important topic around how we manage expectation of returns, because with everything being so measurable and instant, we do often have that expectation placed on us as marketers that things are going to turn around within a couple of months. Do you have any tips for people on setting that expectation in those presentations or otherwise?
One of the things that really helped was talking to other companies who'd been through the same journey. So I got some insight on when they started getting returns and started to use that when I was talking to the leadership team. And again, just talking to, this is what we can expect in year one. The reason that we don't get the full return or that it has to build is because we have to build up our audience pools. So just kind of talking to them about the rationale behind that and what it would look like in year two. I think it always helps when you nod to other companies and what they've been through, particularly, larger ones that everyone is familiar with.
Yeah, that's a great idea, a really useful tip. In terms of how the team was structured, did the individuals in the project then report to you, or did they report to other managers? And if so, how did that come together?
The project team didn't report to me. I was basically the product owner. So it was about, getting them really excited with the use cases. That a lot of them were from a technical background. So it was centering it on the use cases, the customer benefit and the business benefit. And then we had a PM, a project manager on this as well, who was actually supporting with the day-to-day deliverables around it. But as I said, it was a great group of people who were highly engaged and highly driven to get the results that we needed.
And were they working solely on this project, or were there other things they were doing as well?
They were across a couple of things. So, there's always a challenge getting the right level of resource to make it happen. But I think we managed pretty well, and largely I think it came down to the fact everyone wanted to work on it because they could see the potential with it and it was interesting.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps when there's a new project that has that potential as well within the organisation, which it's obviously delivered on. When you initially started, what was your estimated time frame? I know you said, not in the first 12 months for a return. Was that how it ended up, or was it different to your expectations?
I had wanted to see a big uplift straight away, obviously. I was hoping for that. One of the big learnings early on was around the audience size. So, you can be hyper-personalised and do some great targeting, but often what that means is that you might have too narrow a segment. So part of what we went through was a bit of a learning experience where we had to balance the level of personalisation and targeting with the amount of people that we're going to reach. And sometimes it's better to go with a larger group of people and have some level of personalisation rather than a narrow, small subset of people where it's really personalised to them. So that was a bit of a learning. I think the other thing was with our data management platform, it's so important to get people to authenticate so that you can build up audience pools. So getting people to log in to insurance, for example. So we had to work really closely with other teams like the email team to make that happen, working closely with with insurance online teams that manage those places. So, it just took a bit of time to build it up.
So in terms of overall time frame of the project, how is that compared to kind of, what you were anticipating initially?
It was delivered on track in terms of getting the technology up and running. In terms of the business benefit, we started to see, and we got some wins in year one, which was really encouraging, but it really took off in year two. So I think it was pretty well aligned with what we were expecting. The success of it in year two was greater than what I had ever expected, which was really encouraging.
Excellent. And it sounds like you took a test and learn approach to this as you went.
Absolutely. That was one of the key principles for us. And I think that would be the big piece of advice is start with your plan, start with your strategy, but be really clear around what you're testing. So what is your hypothesis? What is your expected uplift that you're wanting to get? So how are you measuring that? Is it a reduction in your acquisition, or is it, renewal improvement, whatever your metrics might be? And then make sure you're closely monitoring that and get ready to kind of optimize it or pivot if it's not working.
Mm.
So we developed a bit of a test framework to do all of that.
Yeah, great. And this project is still continuing now. Is this part of how you're using digital media moving forward?
Yeah, so it's part of our BAU digital media practice now.
Okay.
So, the team have got a really clear audience strategy that's been developed that's leveraging our first, second, third party data. And it's just part of how we get our results day to day.
And are you changing those second and third party data, sources frequently, or how often do you need to revise them?
Yeah, we are. What we often do is we work with our brand teams and our above line teams. So if they're negotiating a publisher deal, we'll tap into that. We'll make sure we're aligned. We work really closely with our brand teams as well to make sure any big, brand upper funnel work we're doing, we then retarget off the back of that and try to push people down the funnel using the right targeting.
Has the source or the depth of the second and third party data evolved much over the last 2 years?
There's definitely a lot more available now. There's more sophistication with how people price their data. When we were beginning, people didn't really know what their data was worth, and we didn't really know what to pay for it. So it's definitely changed a lot since then. It's much more mature in that space, and we're clearer around how much we're willing to pay for it and what that will mean in terms of cost per acquisition.
Yeah.
So that's definitely moved and progressed forward.
When you started off, what did you set up as your measure of results for this?
Yeah, so our measure really was around our cost per acquisition. So driving a business benefit from the program. And, we had a customer focus on it as well. So improving the customer experience by making it more relevant. Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose from where the project is at the moment, how has that achieved those goals for you?
Yeah, it has absolutely blown us away. As I said, it had to build up. But in terms of the business results in year 2 and 3, it has driven significant uplift in terms of revenue and significant reduction in cost per acquisition. So it's been a really, really strong project. And as I said, it's now as a result part of our BAU program.
Awesome. Well, look, you've given us heaps of tips and learnings along the way. If you were starting this afresh again today, or if you were advising another marketer who's looking to implement something similar, what advice would you give them?
I would say take a structured approach to it. So think about the audience segment, think about where they're at in the journey, and then look at the different data sources that you can pull in to match all of those. Focus on the things that will have the biggest impact. Really prioritise those. Be clear around how you're going to measure success. Start with the big things, and then start with the big rocks, and then move on to the little pebbles later. And focus on results. Talk to the business about what you're trying to achieve and how it's tracking. Do it in a way that you're talking about the use case rather than the technology side, because the technology side can be pretty overwhelming.
Excellent. And I love the reference there to the big rocks and the pebbles. If you haven't seen that video yet, I'd highly recommend you check it out on YouTube. What budget size or media spend do you think an organisation needs to be at in order to implement this type of campaign?
It doesn't need to be huge. In fact, when I was at a much smaller organisation, I was doing the same sort of thing, uploading customer lists to Facebook custom audience, and they had a reasonably small budget. So you just got to make sure you have enough people in your customer list so that there's enough of a match rate there. But by all means, you don't need to have a massive budget to make this work.
Awesome. And where do you see this space evolving as time goes on? Obviously, the data is getting more rich every year. What else might be changing that we need to be thinking about?
I think what will continue to be a focus is around attribution. So, understanding the impact and the role that each of the channels play. So I think attribution will continue to be big. We know that this all needs to be focused on customer needs, and it needs to really respect their privacy and the amount of data that they're willing to give you. I think there has to be a value exchange there. So if you're wanting their data or they're using their data, you need to improve the experience as a result of that and give them something to return.
Yeah, and do you think that customers are going to continue to, be happy to provide data for this type of use?
I think they are where there's that genuine value exchange. If there's not that value exchange, then they'll obviously turn away from it. They obviously need the option to opt out of it as well. So you need to really respect that and be clear around how you're using their data, why you're doing that, and how they can choose not for you to use it.
Yeah, great. So many gems of knowledge there. So that's been wonderful. Thank you. Now, if people want to find you online after this conversation, how can they find you or get in touch with you, Brooke?
Look me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. So Brooke Charlton, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, please remember to subscribe. My recommended action item from today's show is to think about your upcoming projects and to check if you've been really clear about the benefits and timelines for which stakeholders can expect to see results. And make sure they're realistic. Please join me in the Interactive Minds Facebook group where hundreds of marketers have discussions, answer questions, and I share the latest news I'm seeing in the industry. You can access today's show notes at interactiveminds.com/podcast. See you next week.